Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to the Celtic Way. I am your host, John McGinley. I'm joined by Josh McCafferty today. We're here to chat through all the latest going on at Celtic, who have a big match tonight against Roma in the Europa League, which, Celtic picked up a massive result against Feyenoord last time out in this competition, Josh. It's kind of renewed hope of qualification. Obviously, the circumstances around tonight's game mean, first of all, it's a very difficult game. But I think expectations are lower somewhat. It feels similar than when we went into the Feyenoord game where everyone was feeling a bit down about it. But I think this is a competition where Celtic have shown they can pick up a big result. So I'm actually quite excited about the match now. I don't think I have been this week until this moment. It's also sold out, Josh, like kind of under the radar. It's completely sold out. Celtic fans going to Celtic Park tonight in a big way to back the team, which I think is also welcome.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the game. It's going to be a tough one for Celtic. It's a step up in opposition from Feyenoord, even though it's a home game. I expect Roma to come to Celtic Park, look to control things, play well. Watched them at Ibrox a couple of months ago. They won 2-0 and they never really got out of second gear that night. But like you say, Celtic have shown not consistently enough, but they have shown in Europe this season that they can do well and they can get results. And with a full Celtic Park behind them, I think a lot of people now, especially after what happened in the aftermath of Sunday's game, will be right behind Wilfried Nancy and the team going into this one tonight. So yeah, very much looking forward to it.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a silly week in terms of the noise around Celtic. I thought some sense was brought back to all of it yesterday when Wilfried Nancy and Austin Trusty faced the press, both in their broadcast press conferences, but also in their kind of sit downs with the written press as well, which you seem to get a little bit more substance at the moment. I think the main thing for me was that Wilfried Nancy's just very calm about everything, isn't he? He's like all the silliness this week, all the noise, the massive reaction to his first match, and he basically came out and said, "Look, this is nothing to me. I've cut all media kind of out of my daily diet of information. He doesn't have social media. He's not keeping up to date with any of it." And he was pretty calm and collected, which I like to see. He didn't react to anything. He just he put across his point of view. He communicated his Celtic priorities and where he wants to take the Celtic team. And I felt just brought a bit of sense back to proceedings for me, Josh.
Yeah, it was a very measured press conference. Usually as a journalist, you're looking for sometimes a major sensational line that comes out of it. But there was no major sensational line that came out of the press conference, in my opinion, which is a good sign at this moment in time for Celtic when they just want to tone things down. And yeah, the manager has cut everything off in terms of social media. He did that, he said, when he first became a coach. So yeah, very measured, controlled, didn't want to ruffle any feathers, very grounded, and yeah, it was good to see.
Okay, before we move on into the bulk of the show, just a word for our sponsors at Simply Furniture, who are located in Hillington, Glasgow. They're an independent brand dedicated to bringing luxury and contemporary style into homes across the UK. With over a decade of experience in furniture retail, they meticulously source only the finest pieces, created for quality, comfort, and timeless design. They have a dedicated team to ensure your furniture is delivered with care right to your doorstep. And if you want to see their range up close, you can visit their showroom in Hillington, Glasgow. They'll in-store discount. Austin Trusty, also on media duties yesterday, Josh. Interesting comments. Some people may have missed this. They might not have seen this because it wasn't in his broadcast press conference. He was quite guarded, I think, in the broadcast press conference, and then in the kind of sit down with the written press, he was a little more expansive and a little more defensive of Wilfried Nancy, which was actually nice to see. Now, he was asked about the tax report. It was inevitable he was going to be asked about that. And Austin Trusty said in response to all of that, he said some people are visual learners. You can talk to them and explain things, but some people are just visual learners. Using a tactics board as a way to have people clearly see exactly what you want instead of trying to speak to them during the game when the crowd is in the stands and it's really loud. I think having a tactics board allows people who are visual learners to understand what you want them to do as a coach. And not everyone learns the same way. Not everyone perceives information the same way. So that's what that is. In the dressing room now, we have big iPads, we have TV screens, we have boards. That is all the behind the scenes that people don't see. Even on the bench, they have iPads with tactics on it. But on Sunday, it was just a physical board. It's nothing new. It's nothing crazy. That's just how the game is now, which, again, I think people have been emphasising that in response to some of the silliness around this. But it's good to hear this from a player and that the players weren't perturbed at all by the way Wilfried Nancy went about his business on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it was only natural that Austin Trusty was maybe a wee bit guarded when he was speaking to the broadcast press. If you know the environment when you're up there at the press conference, the whole room's listening, it's all silent and everything's just on the player speaking and the person asking the question. But whereas when they go to sit down with the written journalists, it's a round table discussion. It's much more loose. It's much more somewhat off the record at times and less formal than the initial press conference. And I think that's the reason you're getting better answers simply from Austin Trusty in these types of sit-downs, which was good to see. Like you say, I mean, the initial broadcast one, I don't really think, or when I initially watched it, I didn't think he was defending Wilfried Nancy to a great extent. But then he sits down with the broadcast, with the written guys, and yeah, very much so he's emphasising the point that it's normal. In fact, I've been watching the Last Dance Michael Jordan documentary recently.
Oh, nice.
On Netflix. It's actually quite good. I don't know how it's taken me so long to get into it. Anyway, besides the point, this is in the 90s in basketball, and they're using tactics boards at the side of the pitch.
Yeah.
So this isn't just a new thing in football. This has been something that's been happening in elite sport for decades, even before the millennium. And Austin Trusty pretty much emphasising that point as well.
Don't get me started, Josh, because I could talk for an hour about The Last Dance and Michael Jordan in the 90s Chicago Bulls. I absolutely love that documentary. I love the dynamic between Michael Jordan and all the players, specifically Scottie Pippen. What a guy he is, and kind of what he brought to that document. But you're right, and this is a normal thing. And I think that's what we're trying to underline here. This is all pretty normal. Another kind of encouraging thing that I've kind of heard from Austin Trusty in that interview, he said, just on kind of Wilfried Nancy's demeanour at Lennoxtown this week, Trusty said, with things that have been said since the past result, we haven't heard one negative thing from him about it. It hasn't affected him in any kind of way, and that is a good sign. He's focused on the positives. I'm the same way. I try to find the positives in all facets of life. No one wants to lose. No one wants to be in a situation. No one wants to lose. Lose a game we know we can win. We know we can beat Hearts, but he's tried to put things in a positive way and tried to get players more on board with his messages. He's only been here a week, and that's what you have to do. And he kind of back to the, you wouldn't be at Celtic if Celtic didn't believe he couldn't handle the pressure that is coming his way. He also really played down this back three thing. Trusty said, I've played in a back three a lot. I've actually had a lot of success playing in a back three. I played it in Colorado and it got me a move to Europe. It got me Player of the Year at Birmingham City, and then it got me moved to the Premier League with Sheffield. Then it actually got me a move here to playing in the Champions League, etc. So I'm really comfortable with a back three. I'm adaptable. I love playing in the back two. I love playing in the back three. I love just being on the pitch and defending and fighting for my teammates. So again, it's one of these things where, some of the discussion around Wilfried Nancy has been, he's changed this and the players aren't happy and they're uncomfortable with it. But the messaging, and in fairness, they're not going to be coming out and slating Wilfried Nancy. But the messaging to me, it just speaks to this kind of the actual truth behind the things here. Whereas the players weren't particularly perturbed by anything that happened at the weekend, and they're going to move forward positively. I think it's also clear, when Austin Trusty was speaking in his broadcast, he didn't really shy away from the fact that all of this has been a bit kind of disruptive for the players, did he? Because he said as well that, when you have three managers in the space of a few months, it's naturally going to cause a bit of disquiet and a bit of discomfort. And I think that he's acknowledging that, but also talking up the positive. Says to me anyway that there's definitely kernels of truth here, and it's not just all PR chat.
Yeah, and if Austin Trusty and the players weren't behind Wilfried Nancy, I don't think Austin Trusty would have been defending him and his methods. Number one, the tactics board. Number two, the formation and the system in the press like he did yesterday. Wilfried Nancy was also speaking about that. I think it was in the broadcast, or it might have been in the written. I can't recall which one it was, but he was speaking about how it's not actually at times a back three. Sometimes it goes to a four when Celtic are defending at times. Yeah. Again, just kind of emphasising that point. And what I liked about Wilfried Nancy as well, when he was actually asked specifically about the tactics board in the broadcast, he basically said that people have their opinions. That's fair enough. I don't really pay attention to them. So I think certain managers would pretty much hit out at that, and they would maybe get a wee bit defensive. But Wilfried Nancy's not. He's just calm, collected, and that mood seems to be, his positive mindset seems to be transcending into the team, and certainly Austin Trusty as well.
Someone else who was complimentary about Celtic yesterday was Gianpiero Gasperini, the Roma boss, who has very successfully utilised the back three formation in his time as a manager. And he said, just regarding Hearts, he said, I think considering it was the first time, they were undoubtedly good. They managed to implement this game very well. They conceded 2 goals, but it was because of small details. Gasperini said, what makes the difference is the details. It's not the system that you choose. 3 at the back is getting more and more popular with European teams. Celtic are a team that I like. They're very good when attacking and they're very open. Sometimes the result is not good, like Sunday, but I would say they made a good impression on me. And listen, there's a sense of politics around this. He's not going to come to Celtic Park and in his press conference slate the opposition that he's got coming up. But again, it just leads, I think it just leads to this thing we're trying to get across, that actually a lot of what has happened this week at Celtic is entirely normal, and a lot of people in football are saying so, and Gasperini is one of those as well. So it's just, I think it just burst the bubble of all the kind of furore around the reaction to Hearts for me and all the kind of absurdities. I was just really happy to see a sense of normalcy return to the discussion around Celtic yesterday more than anything, Josh.
Yeah, and put it this way, in terms of their opinions on Celtic and implementing a back three and a big system change, I'm going to hold the opinions of a guy who's won Serie A Coach of the Year twice and won the Europa League in a higher regard than certain publications, columnists and pundits. So yeah, it was good to see Gianpiero Gasperini come out and praise Celtic and praise Wilfred Nancy for what he's done so far, because like you said, he's a guy who's implemented that system so successfully. He's built Atalanta really from the ground up. Managed against Celtic last season, obviously in the Champions League, it was a goalless draw, and he's a very experienced manager who's been round the block multiple times, and he knows what he's talking about and he knows what he's doing. So yeah, that was just another element of calm and that was brought to discussion, and just common sense really from a big football brain.
Yeah, he's also he had the little line there as which was interesting, was the fact that he said Celtic are open at times, which doesn't really fill me with a huge amount of confidence tonight, because it's one of those ones where the opposition manager praises the team, but he also throws in a wee bit, but this is how we're going to beat you type thing. So I guess that we'll see how that plays out tonight, and we know the Roma are talented. I obviously I saw some of their bits of their game against Rangers. They look quite a similar team to Celtic in some ways, and they like a lot of possession, they like a lot of build up, and then they kind of get into the final third, and they're very patient in the final third and wait for their moments to kind of try and get an opportunity, which is going to be like, I think they'll come to Celtic Park and look to have most of the ball actually tonight. I think that's generally what they've done. I think if you look at the pattern of the Europa League games, they've dominated possession in just about all of their matches. So Celtic disrupting that will be key, and I think they're also good at trying to kind of press and Celtic's defensive third, and I think they'll look to put pressure on Celtic's back three like quite quickly, and that will be key. It'll be key, I think, tonight, how Celtic's back threes function and getting the ball out of their feet into the midfield quickly and past the Roma press. That's going to be really the key of the game to me, because I think they'll look to set traps on Austin Trusty, on Liam Scales and Kieran Tierney to try and win the ball back, have create opportunities from that. That's just from what I've seen and kind of how I've looked at them in the Europa League this season. So it's going to be a tough game tonight, and Celtic need to be really up for it, don't they? Because, I think the opportunity for qualification is still there. I don't think that's dissipated just because it's all change and we lost against Hearts. Celtic have to go on and qualify for this top 24. It's right there for Celtic. Some people will see it as a distraction. I agree that the main event for Nancy and the perception of him this week is the St Mirren game at the weekend, the League Cup final. But I think you can't just gloss over tonight just because it looks difficult on paper,
Oh, it's a huge opportunity. If Wilfred Nancy was to get a victory tonight, suddenly the whole boat starts moving in the right direction, if it isn't already. So yeah, Roma are a very tough opponent. There's been a lot made about them losing their last 2 games. One of them was to Napoli, who are the reigning champions, and the other one was to Cagliari, and they were down to 10 men for about 38 minutes of that Cagliari game, so I wouldn't be looking too much into that. They have some top players. Paulo Dybala, a World Cup winner, is a guy who I'm looking forward to seeing in the flesh tonight, actually. But yeah, I think key to tonight will be Celtic getting the crowd off their feet and behind them. We've seen it in the Sturm Graz game. I think the Braga match felt a bit flat. There were obviously mitigating factors for that. But the Sturm Graz game, Celtic dominated that one. They created a lot of chances. They did very well, and they got their rewards and they won the match. So if the team can put in a performance tonight that creates opportunities, is fast, then they'll get the crowd right behind them. Like you say, John, that's kind of went under the radar as well a wee bit. That it's a sellout. I seen that pop up on social media the other day. So it'll be the first European game besides Kairat that Celtic have sold out this season. So looking forward to that side. But Wilfried Nancy, as much as he's never managed in European competition before, he was quick to emphasise in his press conference yesterday that actually he's led a team to the CONCACAF Champions Cup final, which is the Champions League for that part of the world. So he is experienced in continental competition and coming up against sides from other countries. When he was manager of Columbus, they beat a couple of Mexican teams as well, and the Mexican teams are always really good and usually better than the MLS sides.
Yeah, they're the strong forces in that kind of confederation, the Mexican teams, and they have massive supports and they have big atmospheres, and it's something Wilfried Nancy had to navigate on his way to that. Yeah,
so that gives you a bit of hope as well. But at the end of the day, it'll be down to how the players perform on the pitch. But yeah, really looking forward to getting along to Celtic Park. In terms of European qualification as a whole, like you say, Celtic are on 7 points. Last season, 10 points was enough to get you top 24. So if Celtic won tonight, they put themselves in a really, really good position. 11 points was enough in the Champions League, so it'll either be 10 or 11. You'd like to think they can take 3 points from the Utrecht game. So you're looking for really a point from Roma or Bologna, and I think it is possible.
Yeah, I think it's possible to avoid defeat tonight. Charlie McGarvey saying, going by the optimism, I guess not many of us were in Pat Kerr on Sunday. Listen, Charlie, I don't think I'd call it optimism. It's more just kind of like, look, this is still a game of football. It's Celtic at home in front of a sold-out crowd. I just given based, I think why I'm kind of sowing seeds of optimism here is because I went into the Feyenoord game very down about the Feyenoord game, and I know they had their own struggles, but Celtic going away from home in Europe, I was very surprised by the performance that the team put in that night. And admittedly, it was a different manager, different coaching staff, and a different kind of feeling around the place going into that game. But I just don't think you can write Celtic off tonight. I think there's an opportunity there for Celtic to have a performance. My head tells me that Roma certainly have chances of their own and will be strong in the game, and it's how Celtic navigate the big moments, as kind of both managers are saying in the build-up. One of the underlying talking points coming into this is Kelechi Iheanacho. Now, he's been on the bench the last couple of games, but Wilfried Nancy saying he's kind of closer to be able to get minutes now, and that he's actually probably expecting to give him some minutes tonight or against St Mirren at the weekend. He's not going to be starting or anything, but I think we're going to start to see more of Kelechi Iheanacho again after picking up that injury, which nearly 2 months ago now, which is weird. It seems like he got injured just about last week, but it has been close to 2 months and since Iheanacho's been out of the team. So he'll add another option eventually when he's back fully fit, Josh.
Yeah, I think the issue is though he could get called up to Nigeria's AFCON squad, couldn't he?
That's true.
And Celtic would, if he does get called up, Celtic would have to release him on Monday, so he could really only be available and get minutes in these 2 games. We just need to wait and see when their squad comes out what happens. But he's another option at the top end of the park, and I think a lot was made when Kelechi Iheanacho joined Celtic about him being a kind of washed up English Premier League journeyman. But in the minutes,
I see we're watching my analysis of Iheanacho, Josh.
But when he has played, I think he's done all right. He's come up with some big moments. He was robbed of a goal against Braga in the Europa League earlier on. Big goal against Red Star. So he's an option at the top end of the park, and I think he's a guy who is more of a focal point as a number 9 than Daizen Maeda or Johnny Kenny, particularly in these European games. He's able to hold up the ball well. I think Wilfried Nancy, though, was quick to emphasise that he will get some minutes. I don't expect it to be half an hour, maybe maximum probably 20 minutes, but no, it'll be good to see him back.
Yeah, and just on the rest of the team tonight, so what are we expecting? I noticed someone in the chat, I can't find the comment now, but someone asked about Paulo Bernardo. There's other people, contenders to come in. Nancy made him playing a lot of minutes of late, and he's got to manage that as much as anything. I think we're all expecting the same formation, so this some sort of a 3-4-2-1, with probably wingers rather than fullbacks in the wide areas. Now, I'm expecting the same back 3 tonight. I know a lot of people, including ourselves, including this channel, were discussing the viability of Trusty on that right-hand side of that defence. I think for this match, though, I think you stick with a bit of experience in that back line. I think it's a big match to be bringing someone else in for. I don't know about you, but I'm just got the feeling that it's going to be Tierney, Scales and Trusty again. And then ahead of that, I mean, I wonder if there's an opportunity to kind of move Maeda to the left-hand side. I'm not sure how you feel about that, Josh, and maybe have Johnny Kenny playing that in that central role. Again, that's not perfect by any means, and Johnny Kenny, he has scored a few goals this season, but he's still got a lot to prove. But I'm just feeling better about maybe Maeda on that left-hand side going up and down that pitch rather than a Sebastian Tunekte, for example.
Yeah, Dyson Maeda, I think everyone recognises that he's always a reliable option when he's on the left-hand side. And I think when people initially saw that Wilfried Nancy played a sort of 3-4-3 system, the drums are getting banged for Maeda to play on that left. And I think it would be a role he'd be suited to. We know his defensive attributes. And then Johnny Kenny up front could be the man to come into the fray. Yeah, the back three, I mean, I discussed the other day about kind of Kobe Donovan maybe coming into that.
Yeah.
Because he's done well in Europe previously. Could be an option. The right-hand side, Yang will probably play again, I expect. I thought he did well at the weekend. Look to follow that up. The midfield four, I think there could be a change or two in there. You know, Cal McGregor, Arne Engels, Rio Hatate and Benjamin Nigren. I wonder if Wilfried Nancy, a comment mentioned Paulo Bernardo, if he could get a surprise start. You've also got Luke McCowan, who wasn't great at the weekend. James Forrest is another option. He's been training in the build-up to this one. He's been out for a good while. So he's someone who could maybe not start the game, but coming off the bench. So there's a lot of dilemmas and things for Wilfried Nancy to think about.
I think we'll see McGregor and Engels maybe at the base of that this box that has kind of been formed behind the striker. And then I'm looking for change. There are all other options to bring Bernardo in alongside McGregor, maybe push Engels up a bit more.
Yeah.
But I don't think tonight's a game for Benjamin Nigren. And now he's Celtic's top scorer this season. I think his output's been fairly effective across the season, but I can't have a game where there's I can't have Benjamin Nigren drifting out of this game.
Yeah, I think this game could be a game for Benjamin Nigren off the bench, like he showed in Feyenoord. And I think when he's come on and had some cameos, he's actually did all right against tired defences and trying to open things up when teams are pressing forward and looking to maybe equalise or get a goal back in a game. He's someone who can do well in those scenarios and he can pop up in the box. But like you say, from the start, especially against Hearts at the weekend, you're looking for so much more from
him. Ali saying he's just joined the chat, so he doesn't know if this has been brought up yet, but Maeda played left wing back in the last international window for Japan and was impressive. He's played there before. And actually, that's what I want to see tonight. I want to see Maeda on that left-hand side. I think that's... Listen, I think Maeda's that's where he's always been most effective. Now, he was moved through the middle by Brendan Rodgers by necessity in the tail end of last season, and it did pay off, and he continued to score goals, but I think he can be a force on that left-hand side in the way that Celtic play the system under Nancy. That's just my belief. In terms of the Colby Donovan thing, Josh, now, we're not expecting him to start on the right as kind of the right side of the midfield, are we? Because I think Nancy plays wingers, doesn't he? He plays wingers in those positions. Even, you might eventually play Alistair Johnston there, but he tends to go with a more attack-minded players, despite double duties of defence and attack.
Yeah, so if it was going to play, it would be that kind of right-sided centre-back role, but then that would mean sacrificing one of Scales or Trusty, because I don't see Cian Tierney being dropped after his performance at the weekend. So, yeah, it's something for him to think about. Like you say, might just go with the experience, because Trusty and Scales in European competition have done it before. They've turned up for Celtic. So's Kobe Don. Just need to see what the manager thinks. Tony Ralston's another guy who I don't think he'd be perfectly suited to playing on that right-hand side role where Yang played at the weekend, but maybe as a right-sided centre-back, not tonight, but in future games down the line when you're playing someone like Livingston on a Wednesday night at Celtic Park, is something he could be capable of doing.
My problem with Ralston is actually maybe he thinks though. And when a player runs at him, I think he looks exposed and he looks a little bit flat-footed at times, whereas Austin Trusty can be aggressive in the tackle and Liam Scales aggressive in the tackle. I think that's needed, especially in those moments where you might be slightly isolated. You might be in a situation where you're kind of almost exposed if possession has been given away cheaply. And I guess we're hoping to see more. I think a big improvement to tonight's performance would be retaining possession, Josh, in critical moments in the opposition half, because at times against Hearts, I think that's where Celtic started to let themselves down. I just want Celtic to be confident and quick on the ball and just look like they can do something. I just felt at times against Hearts they were getting into good areas and they were just giving it away a lot, and I just really need this Celtic side to start showing a little bit more bravery and a little bit more nous and keeping the ball in ways that is dangerous to the opposition. I know that's a big ask. If we do that, Celtic would be world beaters, but there was just a lot of frustration for me in and around the way Celtic were passing their ball around against Hearts, specifically in the second half, of course.
Yeah, I think Wilfried Nancy now he'll have had a few more days to work with the players on the training pitch, so they'll have had their kind of recovery or maybe off day on Monday. Then they'll have been training Tuesday, Wednesday, so doing some video analysis within that as well. Probably a lot of video analysis actually, because they're managing their fitness and minutes on the pitch and on the training pitch. So that gives you maybe a wee bit of encouragement that you can get his ideas more into the players. And one thing about Wilfried Nancy as well, he said that when he was in charge of Columbus Crew, neither he or any of his teams will be an underdog going into a match, and that tells you maybe a wee bit about the mentality he'll be instilling into these Celtic players in that dressing room going out tonight, that they're not the underdogs and looking to get a result against a big European team. And Celtic, over the past kind of 12 months, maybe I can remember 2, maximum 3 big games in which they have actually turned up. The Rangers semi-final, the Bayern Munich tie, and then the League Cup final against Rangers. In the space of 12 months, 3 big games you've only turned up in. It's not great. So they do owe, the players owe the supporters something tonight.
Yeah, DK just making the point. Our manager was very good yesterday at the press conference. Yeah, but I would just like to highlight that again. We did talk about that at the start of the show, but I do agree. You know, I think it was a good media performance. I know we're not rating him in those sense. It's all about results. But I think just the way Kenny put his point across, very calm, and he actually, he talked about making priorities. He talked about, I think he used the word pragmatic. Usually it's someone in the media using that word, or a pundit using that word to describe a Celtic manager who might have gone a bit gung-ho early on, but he used that word pragmatic. Now that doesn't mean I think that he's going to start playing defensive football, but he's talking about making choices in the moment that best suit the objective of winning. And actually that was a theme throughout his press conference, Josh. He very much emphasised that he does care about winning, regardless of all the furore around his comment on Sky Sports after the game. It is all about winning for Wilfried Nancy. That's what it is all about. You know, he think he's done through performance and performance improvement, but I think he made it clear yesterday that it's all in service of picking up wins in football matches.
Yeah, I think those comments at the weekend get a bit lost in translation. People were starting to compare him to Russell Martin and things like that. But everyone knows that as a football manager, your key objective is to win games, and what leads to that is having good performances, and that's the point he was trying to make. I think a lot of football managers actually butcher trying to make that point about performance levels and prioritising them because they lead to good results. But no, it was good to see him actually kind of put his foot down and emphasise that point.
Natalie McMullen asking from the chat just about Hearts' games in hand. So, yeah, Celtic are 3 points behind Hearts at the top of the Scottish Premiership at the moment. Hearts have played a game more, so Celtic hold the game in hand. Obviously, Celtic are playing in the League Cup this weekend. Hearts do play in the Scottish Premiership this weekend. They're away to Falkirk on Saturday night, so they will have played 2 more games in Celtic going into this weekend. They can go 6 points clear this weekend, but really it's on Celtic to win those games back. Just a clarification point ahead of the weekend, and we'll be talking a lot more about the weekend tomorrow, or certainly Tony and Ryan will on tomorrow's show. It is still the main event, I think, this week, just in terms of like going forward with Nancy, the perception of him, all the kind of noise around him. Tonight is tonight. I think it's something of it's not a free hit, because it's not, but it's certainly for me, the St Mirren game will have a lot more riding on it in terms of Nancy making an impression in Scottish football.
Yeah, 100%. If he wins the St Mirren, if he loses tonight, but the team have a good performance, I don't think many people are going to bat an eyelid or get too wound up. However, if they win on Sunday, then it could be absolutely massive for him, for the team, and for the whole club to really galvanise them going into the second half of the campaign, because it's been a really tough start to the season. 3 different managers, some really bad results, domestically and in Europe. But what a trophy, winning the first trophy of the season could do to galvanise everything. But there's a game tonight, and they need to get through that first.
And St Mirren are tough opposition, you know.
100%,
yeah. And they've actually performed well against Celtic. I thought they were unlucky to lose a couple of weeks ago for me.
Yeah.
Celtic came out of that one with, by the skin of their teeth, really, and St Mirren deserved something out of that game. And I think it'll be similar at Hampden at the weekend.
Yeah, and a lot was made when St Mirren were in the semi-final at Hampden in the League Cup against Motherwell, that Motherwell's attractive possession-based brand of football under Jens Bertalascu would blow St Mirren away. But I think it was St Mirren.
Yeah.
Was it 5-2 they won? They scored 5 goals. So they're a threat. And like you said, they've been very unfortunate not to get a result against Celtic over the past couple of games. They should have probably, or they were very unlucky not to walk away with 3 points on Trophy Day last season. Then on Flag Day, they probably deserved a point. And similarly to Smythe a couple of weeks ago, they certainly deserved at least a draw. So I think that it could be good in a sense that it gives Celtic a shot in the arm, and that they realise that, yeah, they actually do need to turn up and put in a good performance in the game to be worthy of winning the trophy.
Yeah, and people know this, of course, but Luke McCowan got a goal in the 87th minute at home to St Mirren on Flag Day at the start of the season. And then, of course, Callum McGregor scores in the depths of injury time. So these games have been really tight and they've been really competitive. And I think everyone also needs to keep that in mind ahead of the weekend as well. Like, this isn't like a turn up and a gimme and you blow St Mirren away and everyone goes home. You know, this is actually going to be a battle. And for me, it's also about how much the players want to win this trophy, because I think on their day, with the proper motivation within themselves as much as anything, they're obviously capable of beating St Mirren, but it's all about applying that at Hampden. I think there's around 16,000 or so St Mirren fans going to be there, so that's a fair chunk of opposition fans as well, so it's going to be a bit of a feisty atmosphere at Hampden as well.
Yeah, a good number of them. It'll be interesting to see how Stephen Robinson approaches the game. Obviously, it's a first cup final for him at St Mirren. He's managed in cup finals against Celtic before with Motherwell, the League Cup final, and the Scottish Cup final of Celtic's double treble season. And Celtic won both those games comfortably, but I think it'll be a different prospect tomorrow. You know, I'm expecting Alex Gogic to have a really good performance at the heart of the St Mirren backline, Killian Phillips to be energetic in the midfield, people like Mika Mandron causing problems at the top end of the park. So not to really put too much fear into people, but I think that's what you're going to get from St Mirren at the weekend.
Okay, so it's Ryan and Tony on the show tomorrow. Myself and Josh won't be on the channel for the rest of the week. I'm actually recording a video, so I actually need folks' help. If I'm doing a bit of a Q&A video, I'm doing a bit of a mailbag video, taking in some of the best comments on the channel over the last week. I'm hoping to establish it as a new weekly show that we do and record. I will just be doing it on my own, but I need your questions. What do you want us to talk about that we haven't been talking about at Celtic? If you leave them in the comments below, that would be massively appreciated. Yeah, I'm just looking for any topic you want around Celtic, around the channel, around myself, anything you like. Ask anything and I'll look at it and decide whether we answer it or not and move forward in that. But on the live show tomorrow, it will be Tony and Ryan discussing the reaction to whatever happens tonight at Celtic Park. We've got coverage across the website and the channel of the press conferences. Wilfried Nancy's press conferences up on the YouTube channel as we speak. We'll have full coverage tonight, lots of instant analysis and all sorts of talking points coming out tonight. So please keep your coverage on the Celtic Way if you enjoy what we do. Josh, any last thoughts before you sign off for the week?
No, just very much looking forward to the game tonight. If Celtic can get a big scalp in Europe, then it would really build momentum under Wilfried Nancy.
Liam Devine saying on the Q&A show you can talk about the managers' trainers. Yeah, I don't think I will be doing that, Liam. Yeah, I think we'll leave that to the others, and we'll try and move forward and keep it focused on the football. Yes, and good luck to Celtic tonight. I'm really intrigued again to see what happens tonight. I talked this up a lot, and I talked it up again before Hearts. I like going into football matches with unknowns, and there's a lot of unknowns again tonight. And really, I don't think anyone can really predict how the 90 minutes is going to go. I think it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster again, and we'll see who comes out the other side and what the talking points are on the other side. And as I say, Tony and Ryan will take you through those tomorrow morning. So until next time, we'll see you again on the Celtic Way.